Welcome back to another episode of What Should I Get Pierced? My name is Scott Wilkinson. I'm a professional body piercer and have been since 1994. Now, on this show, we take a look at 6 different people. We look at their faces, we look at their ears, and I tell you what would be good possibilities for piercings and ultimately what I think would look best. Let's get started. Now, the first person we have to look at today is Ariana. Now, looking at her face, you can see that there is already a nostril piercing there. Might look like it have a little bit of a bumper irritation. Could be a new piercing. It might need to be readjusted. So if the jewelry's too tight, readjusting might help get rid of that bump. But other thing I would like to do would be add another piercing to the other side so it's nice and balanced, just like that. I love the balanced, symmetrical look. Now, the next thing I would automatically want to do is something with a lower lip, possibly like an Ashley piercing like that, or a vertical labret. Either one of those I think would be amazing piercings, but I think I'm a bigger fan of the Ashley at this point. Now, as far as other piercings, there's definitely room for a Medusa, angel bites. I think if we did the angel bites, you'd want to bring them a little further out, like so, to make those look right. I think, yeah, that'd be a really fun piercing. Always a possibility with septum. That would look really, really pretty. And as well as eyebrow piercing. Maybe going on her right side, just because you see how the hair kind of falls over the eye a little bit more here, might leave it a little bit more visible. Now, as far as my ultimate picks here, I would have to go with the nostril piercing and the Ashley. Let's take a look at her ear. Now, looking at her ear, there's 2 lobe piercings already, look very nicely placed, which makes my job a lot easier because if we wanted to add more piercings, they're going the right direction, and you could follow that all the way up the ear if you wanted to do so. Now, as far as cartilage piercings go, first thing I would say was a doth piercing might fit in really, really nice, as well as a rook. Both those have nice enough ridges where the piercing should heal up nice and quick. Now, there's also a good possibility of forward helixes. You can see this area right here, we could fit something, as well as below it. Whether there's a couple above, a couple below, or multiple up and down the forward helix. Now, conch piercing might look really well with a nice cluster, or heal it up and put the ring in there. And definitely a little tragus piercing. Now, my ultimate picks would have to go with a conch piercing and a forward helix. And up next, we have Justine. Now, Justine's originally from Ghana, but lives in the UK now, and she's wondering about some new fun piercings. Now, looking at her picture, I'm going to suggest something I've never really suggested before. I want to say an Ashley, because I think you guys know that, but what do you call an upper lip Ashley? I think she could get away with that, and that would be really, really awesome piercing and super unique. So that's how we're going to start this one off with. The upper Ashley is what I'm going to call this one. And then maybe if didn't want to do that, I could also see the Medusa. Upper lip piercing would be super, super nice. Now, another possibility would be a nice tight septum ring in there. And high nostrils. I see a lot of fun options really, really fast here. And then as far as eyebrows, it looks like that might be a little bit too taut and tight up in this area. So you might avoid the eyebrows. And maybe a dermal anchor if we wanted to go with one on the side right below the eye there. Could also see some lip piercings, whether it's a normal labret or snake bites on the side there. As far as my ultimate picks, I would do the upper Ashley and high nostrils. Let's take a look at her ear. Now, when we look at her ear, the first thing I'm drawn to is that fold right up on the rook. That rook is screaming to get pierced. I definitely want to do a rook piercing right up there. See how that lays and flows with the ear automatically? I could also see like an upper helix. You see how it kind of forward helix area? So you'd only see the forward-facing gem, just kind of like the forward-facing Ashley. I could also see double conch piercing. Because it's kind of flat in this area, you can see the two would work really nicely next to each other like that. Also see a tragus piercing. And as far as my ultimate picks, I would have to go with that rook and the double conch. And the next person we're looking at is Kevin. Kevin hopes to come out to Vegas and get pierced someday. I hope you do. I would love to put some holes in you. Now, as far as some new fresh piercings, I could see some lobrets. With facial hair, sometimes you can see the hair isn't growing in this area. So if we put some low piercings down there, some nice big studs in there, pretty awesome. Now, there's also the other possibility of doing a bridge piercing. Drawn right to that area. Bridge piercing would be really cool as long as there's the proper anatomy for it, of course. Eyebrow piercings, I could totally see an eyebrow piercing up there, possibly on both sides. As far as other piercings, the high Monroes when you have the mustache, I don't know why I'm such a fan of it, but those would be really cool. Basically angel bites, high angel bites. And as far as my ultimate picks here, I would have to go with those lobrets and the high angel bites. Let's take a look at his ear. Now, when we look at his ear, you can see that there's the helix piercing up top, pretty nice, and we also have a double lobe piercing on the bottom. Now, the lobes seem like the placement's a little close together. There's nothing wrong with that, especially if you wanted to add more piercings. Now, if we were adding more piercings, you'd keep them nice and close together like so, and we'd be able to go up the ear. And if you did those hoops all the way up, it kind of gives that layered, almost chain type effect. It's a really, really cool look. So multiple lobe piercings close together is a really fun look. Now, as far as new piercings in the cartilage, totally see a doth piercing. That fit in there really well. You could also see a rook piercing. Forward helix piercing. One on top, one on lower. And if you continued, if you did the spacing right, let me try this again here. If you want a little higher up there, one lower there, and then one of the tragus, you get the nice even spacing going in the front of the ear. Really cool look if you can get that, and he has the right anatomy for it. Also see a conch piercing. See how this comes to a nice little point? I think that if we did a stud right there, you'd be able to heal that up and wear a ring nice and snug around the conch. Really awesome look. And we have that one helix piercing up top. I love how that is nice and snug. Again, it's all healed up. You could wear a ring nice and tight going around the top. Maybe another one here and another one here. But I want you to heal that up with studs first. So maybe another one like that and another one like that. A lot of fun options here. And then the last option here is if we did do all the fun rings on the top once they're healed, you could always do that anti-helix right in the middle or the kind of flat, kind of as the centerpiece to pull it all together. Now, my ultimate picks here is going to be the two forward helixes, the tragus, and just another helix on the top. Our next submission is from Maxine. Now, when we look at Maxine, I don't see any visible piercings here, but I could definitely see a Medusa piercing. Nice centerpiece right there. You could do a large gem, something nice and tight. Super fun look. Now, another possibility here would be a septum piercing. I can see a nice tight little ring around the septum as well. I could also see a labret piercing, keeping it nice and centered. And, of course, eyebrow piercings. Totally see eyebrow, maybe in just a little bit more than normal. Normally they kind of point towards the corner of the eye, but bring it in a little bit more like mine. I could see one, possibly even the two eyebrow piercings up there. Now, as far as my ultimate picks here, I would have to go with the septum and an eyebrow piercing. Let's take a look at her ear. Now, looking at her ear, you can see that there is a single lobe piercing down there, and let's definitely get some jewelry in there, and possibly add one, maybe two more lobe piercings. I could totally see the three there. Now, another possibility would be a conch piercing. You can see that that would fit a nice big cluster braid going down the side, or with the ring going around once it's all healed up. Also see a doth piercing. You could also see a rook piercing. And helixes. I could see possibly the three across the top up there, Been a fan of that for the last little bit. Or the possible 2, maybe 3, or even 4 helixes going down the side. Lots of fun options there. Tragus piercing, looks like the hair might cover it, but having a nice little tight little hidden gem in there is always kind of a fun thing to have. As far as my ultimate picks, before I go to the ultimate picks, I can't believe I didn't mention this. Almost a perfect candidate for the industrial. You can see the bar going straight across, nothing really in the way. I think I would have to suggest an industrial. So now my ultimate picks, the industrial and a conch. All right, now if you haven't done it, go ahead and hit that like button for me. I'd really appreciate it. Next person we're looking at is Michelle. So let's take a look at Michelle. Now Michelle doesn't have any visible piercings here, but I could definitely see a gesturum. And see how a gesturum would fit perfectly with the shape of her lips, centered in the face, super beautiful. And possibly you've got the gesturum, I could also see a little bit wider dolphin bites. Gesturum and dolphin bites would be really, really fun. Now there's also the possibility of doing dahlia piercings, as well as a nice tight septum piercing. You could also see some nostril piercings, maybe a little bit higher up than normal, kind of going more into the crease area. Might be a little bit too big for a ring, but I could see it up in that crease, like little beads just resting in there. And as far as my ultimate picks, I would have to go with the gesturum, the dolphin bites, and those nostrils. Let's take a look at Michelle's ear. And you can see right away that there is an industrial. It kind of looks like the bar might be digging in this area, so you might want to be careful and keep your eye on that. If it's a fully healed piercing, it's probably not a big deal. I just like to point those things out if I see them. Now, as far as new piercings, I would love to do a snug piercing. You can see how this ridge right here stands out nice and tight, and there's a good ridge, so you can do a little curved barbell right in there. It's a long heel, but it's worth it. And I would also like to do a rook piercing, kind of going up and down, following the flow of the ear, just like that. See how a curved barbell would look really good. And we could also do tragus piercing. Could also do a conch piercing if we weren't doing the snug, because they'd kind of cover. I got an idea. We could do a snug piercing here, and an upper conch and a lower conch. That might be kind of fun. And then you could heal it up and maybe possibly wear rings around with a little curved barbell on the inside there. Gives you a lot of fun options there. Now, as far as my ultimate picks, I have to go with the conch, and the snug. And the last person we have to look at today is Maya. Now, looking at Maya, I just want to point out, this is the tight little septum ring that I always love seeing on people. She wears it perfectly, so props to you for that. Now, as far as adding some new piercings, with a tight little ring like that in the septum, that gives plenty of room in the Medusa philtrum area, so that's kind of a no-brainer for me. That would look really, really nice. We'd also see a eyebrow piercing, maybe up on the side up here with a curved barbell. And if we did the single on that side, maybe a stud just on the other side, tight little ring once it all heals up. I could also see the trifecta here, meaning adding a nostril piercing on both sides. And even like tight rings with a tight septum ring is another cool look. So, and for my ultimate picks here, I'm going to have to go with the eyebrow, the Medusa, and the lip. Let's take a look at her ear. And with the ear, I love the big bling earrings on the bottom here, along with the nice tight little rings again. Everything nice and snug, so we can kind of follow the suit there. I could also see a couple helix piercings just up top, and once they're healed, more tight rings just like on the lobe. I could also see a double rook Of course, nice and parallel to kind of follow the face. If you didn't do the rooks, you could also see a doth piercing right in there. You could also see the conch piercing. Tragus doesn't protrude very far, but we might be able to get a stud in there. And possibly, if we wanted to do the anti-tragus, you see how that kind of protrudes out there? A nice little curved barbell in there. So, as far as my ultimate picks, I am going to go with the double helix and a double rook. So that winds it all up today. What did you guys think of my picks? Let me know in the comments. Now, if you haven't already, like I said, hit the like, hit the subscribe, and of course, keep putting holes in your body. We'll see y'all in the next video.